done. We have a group of institutions which are located in 3 towns of Madhya Pradesh, and we are the leading institutions of Central India, with over 10,000 students, and been in existence for almost 26 years. We're going to be having a university very soon, and that would be the final destination, so to say, in terms of the journey towards KG to PG, and that's where we are getting. So, Vandana, Bhavna, you were taking this.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your valuable time. I know you are traveling, but still, you just yeah.
Oh, you're driving.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He's on the way somewhere.
Yes, I'm driving. So you will see a little bit of a shake in my picture.
Okay.
So thank you so much, sir. Now I request Isha to proceed, please.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of BJMC Electronic Media, Department of Mass Communication of Prestige Institute of Management and Research, Indore, I, Isha Verma, welcome you all in our discussion forum for Media Monitor, in which we will discuss our various media aspects, its impact and effect on individual and society. And the topic for today's discussion is social media, freedom and social responsibility. Our keynote speaker is going to emphasize on this topic. The reason is that the canvas of social media is getting bigger and bigger. It's a very relevant topic as the youth is attracted towards social media. And it's very important to understand the freedom and responsibility when we use a social media platform. So today among us, we have our keynote speaker, Dr. Yahya R. Kamalipur, and a panelist, Professor Bhavna Pathak, Professor Zubair Khan, Trisha Nimbalkar, Mehak Jain, Harsh Vijay Varghya, and Ashwin Matthew John. Before we initiate our session further, I would like to give a brief introduction about our keynote speaker. Dr. Yahya R. Kamalipur, sir, an internationally noted media scholar, professor of communication, and former chairman of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, North Carolina A&T State University. Previously, for 28 years, he served as professor and head of the Department of Communication and Creative Arts at Purdue University Northwest. He is the founding manager of the Global Media Journal Network and founding president of Global Communication Association. He has served as an international academic consultant for several colleges and universities and on advisory boards of prominent communication journals. His areas of interest and research include globalization, media impact, international communication, Middle East media, and new communication technologies. Profiled in the contemporary authors and who's who in the world, he published 20 books, including Global Media Perception of the United States, The Trump Effect, Global Communication 3rd edition, Digital Transformation in Journalism and News Media, and Communication Through the Universe. Sir has earned his PhD in Communication at the University of Missouri, Columbia. Professor has been to 65 countries and was interviewed by the major prominent newspapers and broadcast media, including BBC, National Public Radio, Washington Post, and many more. So very good morning, sir, and we all welcome you.
Thank you, thank you.
So, sir, the very first question from my side is how do you correlate the term freedom and social responsibility dealing with social media?
Okay, so let's see what I've done. I have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay,
so
sir.
Let me go through that.
Yeah.
And then I'll be happy to answer questions. I will pose some questions at the end of the presentation as well.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. Okay, you have to allow me to share my screen.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yes, yes. Let me just call Zubair, sir. He will just allow. Just give me a sec. Yeah.
Done, ma'am.
Sir, yes. Now you can share your screen. He has given you the permission for sharing it.
Okay, so it's good to be with you. If you are interested to learn more about my activities and my publications, research, teaching, you can go to my website, which is kamalipur.com. Now, the goal of this presentation are I have condensed this presentation because it's a broad topic and it requires a semester if you want to cover it, if you want to cover everything, at least a semester. So we are going to take a brief look at the past, at the traditional media, a brief look at the present, the new media or digital media, a little bit about image and perception, and then social media and their impact, and then this important topic, information, disinformation, misinformation, and then democracy and freedom, censorship, and other issues. So those are the topics we will be covering briefly. Now, here are the communication milestones, the important milestones in the history of communication, starting with the development of language, invention of alphabets, invention of the Gutenberg press, wireless radio broadcasting, satellite technology, global positioning, the internet, and then social media. So there is a a history, and there are books about these various milestones in mass media. So from my perspective, we've had two important or significant developments or in the history of communication. The first one was the invention of the Gutenberg press, and the Gutenberg press changed everything. That is, all aspects of life. And the next major invention, of course, was the internet. Likewise, the internet transformed everything, all aspects of our lives. So starting with in 1450s, the Gutenberg press, we transitioned from oral culture to print culture. And then because of the printing press, people become slowly more literate. They were able to read, write. Books were published, flyers, magazines, newspapers emerged, libraries emerged, universities, publishers. And can you imagine a university without books? And then we transitioned from the print culture to the electronic culture. And that's where we are, mass production and mass distribution, and therefore the concept of mass communication, where the media are used to reach a mass audience. Okay? And then global communication, another shift, and that briefly started with Sputnik 1 As you know, Russia has now even introduced a COVID vaccine called Sputnik. So Sputnik started a space race between the US and Soviet Union, and the US put a Telstar 1 in 1962 in orbit. And then in 1900, we have transatlantic cable, okay? Then 1970s, global positioning system, and 1980s, the internet. Okay? So, and then with the emergence of internet, again, everything changed. All aspects of social, political, economic, personal. So economically, we became more globally interconnected, and politically, people became more engaged, and citizens were able to express their views via the social media and the internet, and then social cultural changes. So, and then briefly about technology and human mind. Okay? So technologies are tools, like any other tool. They have positive and negative impacts, and it depends on who and what purpose they are used. You know, a pen is a tool. It depends on how you use it and for what purpose. What is your goal, your ultimate goal? So technologies likewise are tools, and depends on how they are used. And when it comes to technology and human mind, of course, you are familiar with AI, artificial intelligence, that's becoming big. And in fact, at MIT, you know, there are robots can communicate with robots. Their robots can read people's mind. So there are some interesting developments taking place. And having said that, let me show you a short video about technology and reading mind by Michio Kaku,
when I was
Japanese.
A child, I was fascinated by telepathy in science fiction. In fact, I tried really hard to read other people's minds, to project my thoughts into other people's heads. And I came to the conclusion that maybe telepaths do walk the surface of the earth, but I wasn't one of them. Now I'm a physicist, and I realized that with all the electromagnetic probes that we have of the human brain, we can actually see thoughts ricocheting across the brain itself. We can see the thinking, living brain as it thinks, and we can create computer simulations of this to understand what people are thinking. So at the present time, telepathy exists. For example, look at my colleague, Stephen Hawking. He's lost control of his fingers now, so he cannot communicate even with the laptop computer. But look at his right frame of his glasses. There's an EEG sensor that picks up radio waves from his brain, decodes that, and he's allowed to manipulate to some degree a laptop computer. You can do better by putting a chip directly on top of the brain. People who are totally paralyzed, who are vegetables, and they're trapped in the shell of a lifeless body, these people can now play video games, they can read email, write email, do crossword puzzles, they can operate their wheelchair, they can control household appliances, they can control mechanical arms. Next, they will control mechanical legs and exoskeletons. In fact, one of the people that pioneers this technology for the next World Soccer Cup wants to have a paralyzed person put on an exoskeleton and initiate the soccer games. That's a goal for one of the scientists that I've interviewed for my book. And so we're way past simply understanding the way in which the brain radiates radio. We're at the point now where we can actually interface the human brain with a computer and eventually with an exoskeleton by which they can become Iron Man. And so Iron Man is not simply a question of science fiction. It's something that we can actually visualize in the laboratory. In addition to putting a chip on top of the brain, you can actually put sensors directly into the brain itself that are like hair-like thin fibers. There's a certain class of people with depression that have been resistant to drugs, pharmacology, psychiatry, counseling. They are chronically depressed. It turns out that when you put them in a brain scan, you find out that yes, indeed, there's a certain part of the brain that seems to be associated with this depression. By putting in probes, you can dampen the electrical activity of this, and all of a sudden, they're cured. On one hand, you see somebody who's chronically depressed, wants to commit suicide, has been plagued by this, and afterwards, they're just cured. It's remarkable. But this is just another of the ways that we can access the human mind. Another way is through probes in an operation on epileptics. Epileptics have many seizures. Many of them are life-threatening. It's possible to remove parts of the cranium. These people are fully awake during this process because the skull has no sense organs to sense pain. You put a bunch of electrodes directly on the brain itself. These people can type. These people can type very quickly simply by thinking about it. They think about a certain letter, a computer recognizes the pattern, and the computer will type in this way. Yet another way of probing into the brain itself is with an MRI scan. We can take the living brain, put it in an MRI, and get 30,000 dots, like a Christmas tree set of lights, that code the amount of electrical activity. You take these 30,000 dots, put it into a computer program that can then decipher it, and bingo, what you get is a picture of what they are thinking. We can now visualize what somebody is thinking about. In fact, it's on the web. There's a picture of Steve Martin, for example, in one of his movies. And then right next to it is a picture as viewed through the human mind. This is amazing. You can clearly recognize the eyes, the ears. You cannot recognize the fact that it's Steve Martin. However, you can also do giraffes. You can put elephants. And clearly you're looking at an animal and not a human. And now, get this. We can actually begin the process of photographing dreams. This was considered pure science fiction. Look at the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio called Inception. It turns out that the first steps in this direction have been taken already in Kyoto and at Berkeley. What you do is you put the patient in an MRI scanner and he falls asleep. The brain is then scanned, creating 30,000 dots. A computer analyzes the 30,000 dots of a sleeping brain and reconstructs the image of what he's dreaming about. Now, I've seen these pictures. They're pretty crude. You see a picture of a human, and obviously he's thinking about and dreaming about a human. But one day, we may be able to refine this technique so that when you wake up in the morning and you hit the play button of a computer, you see the dream that you had last night.
So fascinating. Technology, and we live in an exciting time, and of course in a way it's scary what is happening and or what will happen to future generations. And in fact, some of you know that smartphones may no longer be like the ones that you have. It could be like planted on your arm. So, and also they'll be flexible. You can fold them. So a lot of developments are taking place. So the internet is pretty young, about 4 decades, and has changed practically everything. I don't think you can think of anything that, or anyone that who has not been impacted by the internet. And all the traditional media, by the traditional media, we mean, radio, television, newspapers, magazines, books, music, motion picture, all have converged onto the internet, are digitally available and accessible. And in addition, we have many social network platforms that you are familiar with, Facebook, Twitter, MyPlace, and so forth. And of course, again, there are, whether we talk about the social media platforms or the internet, there are pluses and minuses, there are advantages and disadvantages. And for instance, when it comes to internet and privacy, all of us who use the internet, we leave what is called a digital footprint. Okay, that means Google knows more about us than us, because we forget. But all of our activities are recorded and can be traced. You've noticed that when you buy something on a particular website, or you have an activity, whether it's YouTube, you go and watch a particular video or buy a particular product, and then you go to another site, you see an ad coming, to you, selling a similar product or the same product. It's called push advertising. And that's because they have traced and they know what we are interested, based on what we have done and where we have been. It's a crowded market when it comes to social media landscape. There are many of them. I don't know which ones are your favorites. It seems like Facebook is still at the top of the chart, and Instagram, YouTube, and so forth. And then again, a very short video about the status of social media in 2020. So where do we stand? Okay.
Social media statistics and facts in 2020. The world population is 7.8 billion people. Nowadays, more than 4.5 billion people now use the internet, while social media users have passed the 3.8 billion, which means nearly 60% of the world's population is already online. The number of people around the world using the internet has grown to 4.5 billion, an increase of 7%, 298 million new users, compared to January 2019. There are 3.8 billion social media users around the world as of January 2020, with this number increasing by more than 9%, 321 million new users, compared to January 2019. More than 5.19 billion people globally now use mobile phones, with user numbers up by 124 million, 2.4% over the past year. Now the average user of the internet spends 6 hours and 43 minutes online each day, which means probably spent more than 100 days online a year. Let's say roughly 8 hours a day for sleep. That means people currently spend more than 40% of their waking lives using the internet. Let's discover together the amazing social media statistics and facts. Social media statistics. On average, people have 7.6 social media accounts. The average daily time spent on social is 142 minutes a day. 91% of retail brands use 2 or more social media channels. 81% of all small and medium businesses use some kind of social platform. Google statistics. Google processes 100 billion searches a month. That's an average of 40,000 search queries every second. 92.81% of all internet searches are carried out by Google. Those searches are carried out by 1.17 billion unique users. 60% of Google searches come from mobile devices. Facebook statistics. Facebook adds 500,000 new users every day. 6 new profiles every second. 69% of all Americans are on Facebook. 79% of all online US adults use Facebook. 74% of Facebook users check it every day. The average user spends 35 minutes on Facebook a day. There are 60 million active business pages on Facebook. Facebook has 5 million active advertisers on the platform. Twitter statistics: 500 million people visit Twitter each month without logging in. There are 330 million monthly active users. 44% made an account and left before ever sending a tweet. There are 500 million tweets sent each day. That's 6,000 tweets every second. 22% of Americans use Twitter. YouTube statistics: 300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. People now watch 1 billion hours of YouTube videos every day. The average person catches 40 minutes of YouTube content a day. More than half of YouTube views come from mobile devices. 90% of American 18 to 24-year-olds use YouTube. The average mobile viewing session lasts more than 40 minutes. You can navigate YouTube in a total of 76 different languages, covering 95% of the internet population. There are 1 billion monthly active users on Instagram. Over 95 million photos are uploaded each day. There are 4.2 billion Instagram likes per day. More than 40 billion photos have been shared so far. The average Instagram user spends 15 minutes a day on the app. 90% of Instagram users are younger than 35. LinkedIn statistics: LinkedIn has 650 million members. 27% of US adults use the platform. 106 million of those access the site on a monthly basis. More than 1 million members have published content on LinkedIn. Over 3 million companies have created LinkedIn accounts. But only 17% of US small businesses use LinkedIn. Snapchat has 210 million active daily users. 60% of them are under 25. 24% of US adults use Snapchat. In 2016, $90 million was spent on Snapchat ads. The average user spends 25 minutes a day on Snapchat. 73% of American 18 to 24-year-olds use the platform. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
So fascinating, huh? And as you know, social media are public platforms. That is, anyone can post anything from anywhere, provided they have the technology and they are connected to the internet. And there are no gatekeepers like the traditional media. You had the editors who decide what will be published, what will be rejected. So those filters are not there. And once you are on the internet, the fact is no one owns the internet. See, so you can establish your own blog, you can establish your own radio, your own magazine, and there are no limits. It's up to your imagination and creativity. Now, one of the problems with when it comes to news and information, we will talk about later on, is that usually subscribers do not check the sources of information. Yeah? So, many of you probably post and then repost material, pictures, videos, and news without even bothering where it comes from, who created this video. Is it true? Is it not true? So that is a problem. Now, when it comes to media, collectively, media are very powerful. So traditional and the new media together. And this is one of my favorite cartoons, which was published in the New York Times about 2 decades ago. And as you can see, this little boy standing in front of his Dad, and the question is, Dad, if a tree falls in the forest and the media aren't there to cover it, has the tree really fallen? Think about that. So that illustrates the power of the media. That if they do not cover, if they do not report an event, an incident, it hasn't happened. It has happened only to those who have been in the close vicinity or who have seen the event. The rest of the world, to the rest of the world, it hasn't happened. The power of the media, very influential. And now, one of the positive aspects of social media is that you have heard of the citizen journalists. Now anyone can be a reporter. With your smartphone, say an event takes place, you record that and you upload it. Okay, that is again a plus. But again, as you know, everything can be manipulated, provided that the video is not manipulated. Then you have done your duty to report in any event that other media may not have picked up. And the traditional media often pick up their stories from the social platforms. Okay, and of course they check, double check, and so forth. Now, also media collectively impact our perceptions of ourselves and others. Okay, perception and reality. Now, this is an important book, the first book on public opinion by Walter Lippmann. I think it was published in 1962. It is a classic, and those in public relations, public opinion, and journalism, they should read this book. It's and for the first time, he coined many concepts, including perception, stereotyping, and were discussed in that book. So I recommend it. So the key point here is perception is reality. It doesn't matter whether it's real or not. Okay. So that, and we can talk about that and the implications of that. Perception is reality. And in other words, seeing, when it comes to seeing versus hearing, is the visual brain, the power of visuals. You all have heard of the cliche, seeing is believing, or a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So that we have stored a massive amount of visuals in our brains, since we were born, right? And they are in our brain. So we act, again, this is Walter Lippmann, says we act and react based on the images in our heads. We act, this is important, we act and react toward each other based on images in our heads. And when it comes to the race between ears and eyes always win. I say the power of visuals. And you've seen them, right? Just the recent invasion of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of videos and visuals online. The young person who set himself on fire, that resulted in what we call the Arab Spring, demonstrations in Libya or elsewhere. And many of these events were reported by citizen journalists, people who had the cell phones and recorded these events and uploaded them, and then the media picked them up. So, and then social movements now they can't really happen without the social media, because social media through the social media, you can organize, right, events. And the activists use social media quite effectively. Again, the recent events in Washington, D.C., and the invasion of the Capitol, social media were used, and then all of the images that we have seen on television were recorded by people with smartphones, and some, of course, with the reporters. Now, social media impact. It's a short video. What are their impacts?
Cruel social media remarks. Facebook comments have been pouring in after 4 people died while hiking.
You're dealing with an addicted generation. This is a big time bomb ticking. These kids who commit suicide, you go look at their Instagrams, you would have no clue.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No. People who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook. It'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse. To be human means that you are persuadable in every single moment. It doesn't matter what language you speak, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It's not about what someone knows, it's about how your mind actually works.
We now know that many of the major social media companies hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas casino gambling, among other places, to try to make these products as addictive as possible.
We are all vulnerable to social approval. We really care what other people think of us. When you upload a new photo of yourself on Facebook, that's a moment where our mind is very vulnerable to knowing what other people think of my new profile photo. And so when we get new likes on our profile photo, Facebook, knowing this, could actually message me and say, oh, you have new likes on your profile photo. It knows that we'll be vulnerable to that moment because we all really care about when we're tagged in a photo or when we have a new profile photo. I mean, I think we can all feel it. And it's as if we've been infected. It's as if they've drilled a hole in the back of our head and now they've injected the virus and now we walk around searching for feedback using social media. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive. You have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress. They don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to social media. They're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook. That's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, you're just not that important to you. So you have an addicted generation that doesn't have the skill set to ask for help. Combined with the fact that they're so good at Facebook and Instagram, they're good at putting filters on everything. So they're good at showing you how smart and strong they are. These kids who commit suicide, you go look at their Instagrams, you would have no clue that they were depressed.
People look like they have a much better life than they really do. People are posting pictures of when they're really happy. They're modifying those pictures to be better looking. People basically seem they're way better looking than they basically really are, and they're way happier seeming than they really are. So if you look at everyone on Instagram, you might think, all these happy, beautiful people. And I'm not that good looking and I'm not happy, so I must suck. Some of the happiest seeming people, actually some of the saddest people in reality.
Social media isn't real, but you don't ever see real life. The 99% of our lives, the behind the scenes, the unglamorous, unfiltered, day-to-day, bland normality. And you end up comparing your behind the scenes to other people's fake highlight reel and using others as a mirror or benchmark for how you should look, how successful you should be, or how you should live. You'll become your happier self when you stop putting pressure on yourself to be more like someone else.
And they know that this causes depression. They're injecting things into your head that you didn't ask for. Our lives are becoming more transparent, just inevitably, it's just pulling us.
It'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of some people you've messaged?
No.
So that's the CEO of Facebook, right? He knows, but yet, what most people do. You're having lunch, you take picture of what you're eating, where you're eating, in various settings, and you post them without even thinking about it online. So there is, in the process, a false reality is created. A fake reality is created, which has nothing to do with reality. And of course, in the process, you have, competition. When you post something, you're expecting others to like what you have posted. If they don't like it, then you'll be disappointed, right? And issues like that. So again, these are really, we are just touching the tip of the iceberg. And when it comes to media and information, as you know, information isn't a commodity, right? And we act and react based on what we know, what the information we have received. And also the media collectively are agents of power and control. Okay, and those could be governments, those could be corporations, and this is you're probably, I'm sure, familiar with Noam Chomsky, right? And his concept, manufacturing consent, right? So the media are often used to manufacture public consent and gain support. Again, power and influence of the media. And a point about misinformation and disinformation, what's the difference? I mean, they're about the same. But misinformation is intended to change public opinion. See, that's the key. Okay? And that is usually used by, government. And those who want to change and modify public opinion. Disinformation is intended to attract attention. It is mainly used for marketing purposes, selling products and what have you. And freedom and social responsibility. Unlimited freedom results in chaos. You can't have unlimited freedom. There is no country in the world has total freedom. It can also result in anarchy, right? So the communicators in any given position must consider the impact of what they produce, what they write, what they say on society. What will be the impact of this on the audiences, right? A social responsibility. So as communicators, we must be socially responsible and think of the consequences of what we produce, what we write, what we distribute. Okay, and here's a.
Hi, Jennifer Kimball with Culture of Life Foundation. We are here interviewing students at Catholic University of America and Georgetown University on their understanding of the principle of freedom and responsibility.
Freedom.
I just think the ability to make the decisions that you want without any restrictions.
I think freedom is the opportunity to choose whatever you want in every aspect of your life.
Just the ability to act without control from others.
Has video freezed, or I mean, it's a problem from my side.
No, no,
And the
ma'am. The
video
video
has
is freezed.
finished, please.
Okay. Hmm. Sir, are we audible to you? I think there is some network issue, right? It is such a wonderful session and eye-opening, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And meanwhile, I'll request all attendees that you are going to get the certificate, and in between we will share the link, and you have to fill the Google Doc, right? And you will get the participation certificate. All the attendees and even the panelists, I mean, they are requested to fill that form. So a very nice, creatively designed certificate is waiting for all the participants and the panelists for their hard work. And I request all attendees to, I mean, even if they have any questions from Yahya Kamalipur sir, so they can, they can ask their questions either in the chat box or in question answer. So anyone, like most of the attendees are our students, but I can see a new name, Manawar Alamji, and yeah. So we'll be really happy if you have some questions, you want to ask something to our keynote speaker. So you may ask. Dr. Ajitab Singh ji is there. So any questions from the participants or the experience they want to share, they can just write it down in the chat box. Till the time we again connect with sir, I think there is some network issue from Yahya Kamalipur sir's side. So that is the reason he got disconnected. But it was such an eye-opening session. All the videos and that social media stats 2020, which was really shocking. So we use, I mean, social media platforms almost like the hours we sleep, right? So that was around 6 hours, more than 6 hours, right? And a proper sleep, which is required, that is for 8 hours. So sometimes we even put our sleep on one hand, and instead of sleeping or instead of taking a good sleep, I mean, we think that interacting to so many people or interacting new people would be wonderful thing, right?
Yes, ma'am. And even for mass communication students, our life basically revolves around social media in one way or the other.
Yes, because you have, yes, because you have to, keep into looking what is trending. So yes, Yahya sir is with us.
So sorry, we had another power outage.
Yes, sir.
It's been happening since yesterday. We had several, yeah, because of freeze rain.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so.
So we were just discussing about the session, that it was such a wonderful and eye-opening session, especially when I saw that social media stats of 2020. That was really shocking as well.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yes, sir. You may proceed, sir.
Okay, let me see.
Hi, Jennifer Kimball with Culture of Life Foundation. We are here interviewing students at Catholic University of America and Georgetown University on their understanding of the principle of freedom and responsibility.
Freedom.
I just think the ability to make the decisions that you want without any restrictions.
I think freedom is the opportunity to choose whatever you want in every aspect of your life.
Is the ability to act without control from others.
Anarchy. That's when, wow. I mean, in this context, that's when nobody's regulating freedom.
I would say that anarchy is freedom without regulations if there's a lack of responsibility.
Like, I'm not really crazy about anarchy, so
Could lead to problems where like people's freedoms conflict.
It's one of those things in human nature. We will create a government of some sort, even if it's just rules of the road, so to speak.
Would you say that with freedom comes responsibility, though? Are there limits to your freedom?
Well, I sure hope so. If we're going to be living in a productive, healthy society, you got to hope that everybody's going to hold each other to a certain standard.
Without obligations, without a responsibility, freedom is not really anything.
I think freedom is the liberty to interact with one another, and it goes to the very heart of our relationships.
I definitely feel like freedom is not, quote, free. You know what I mean? There's always a price to pay for freedom, I feel like, you know?
I think with freedom, you do have to make your own choices, and you do have to be willing to take the consequences for those choices.
But I guess with that also comes the responsibility to use that choice wisely and to make choices that make greater freedom for other people.
With the freedom to be able to choose what is good, you also have the duty or the responsibility to choose what is good.
But your freedom is intrinsic. No matter where you are, under which situations, you should have the same essential freedoms, the same essential liberties.
We want to say that there's something unique about the human person. There's something that makes us different than animals. There's something that makes us good, and something that we have some sort of intrinsic dignity.
Once you're a human, you can't unhave dignity. So as soon as you're created as a human, that's when you have these fundamental rights.
Especially with the discussion of rights, is that we're saying what a right truly is the recognition of something that's already present.
Not everybody will always be personal.
And if laws are well made, they are both a reflection of natural rights and of civil rights.
But I think there are such things as objective truths when it comes to good and evil, or good and bad.
All humans are born equal. We're all endowed with rights that are inalienable to us.
They could take a step too far, and then freedom wouldn't exist any longer. I think there needs to be a balance between what the government can do.
The government has frameworks from which to pull to make sure that they're making good decisions and weighing freedoms effectively.
But oppression would be that we're not free to pursue what is good, true, and beautiful.
And certainly the ability to be able to say, think, feel, and express what you want publicly without fear of retribution.
But I certainly think that with freedom comes responsibility that's grounded in the same morals and values that our basic human rights are also grounded in.
Those rights and responsibilities go to the very heart of who we are as humans. The human person is the goal in government.
Usually when we're talking about responsibility in the context of government, we should be doing so in the understanding of the social contract.
But why should I have a social contract with you? Because maybe I think you're lesser than me. So why even enter into that contract unless I see that there's something that's equal in you? But if I don't even think that you're equal to me or that you have something in common with me, why would that contract exist?
I don't think you can legislate social morality. It has to come from strong families, strong communities that establish strong networks to raise strong people.
I don't see freedom as a choice between having all the options available to you necessarily, but having the ability to choose the right thing to do.
So the bottom line is that freedom, there is a limit. mean, yes, one can say what he or she wants to say, but there are consequences. One can do whatever he or she wants to do, can punch somebody. There are consequences. See, so often freedom is misinterpreted. Freedom always connected to social responsibility. You know, what will be the impact of what I do, what I say, what I write, okay? And then that takes us to media censorship. When it comes to the digital and media and print media, there are differences. It was much easier to censor the traditional media, right? And for instance, a newspaper, they can censor the information before the paper is published, right? They can censor it after it is published by collecting, you know, the newspapers and transporting the traditional media, book, a newspaper, a magazine. It is tangible. You can see it. You can seize it, right? And there were during the history of media, there were times where book burning ceremonies took place. You know, governments or churches or whoever, they did not like certain books, so they burned them. So that was, you know, a form of censorship. But it is, when it comes to social media, it's more difficult. It's not impossible, but it is more difficult to censor the digital media because they're not tangible. We can see them. And most of the information you pick up are via the, you know, frequencies that are in the air, right? And then the fact that anyone can originate, manipulate, distribute information, text, video, audio, and so forth. And having said that, you know, when it comes to internet, just in Myanmar, there was a coup, right? Military coup. What did they do? They shut down the internet. Why did they shut down the internet? So to control people, to prevent, you know, further demonstrations. But nonetheless, you know, there were demonstrations. But again, it's all about, you know, power and control. And when it comes to communication flow, you know, in 1976, we had a new World Information Order. Then before the internet, the flow was mainly one way, you know, from the advanced countries to the less advanced countries. And then the transitions are from print to digital, from one way to two way, from vertical to horizontal. And then now what we have is a multi-directional flow, information flow. That has changed drastically, right? And from visible to invisible, okay? So in terms, you know, when it comes to illustrating the current situation, this is a multi-directional information flow. With various people in various parts of the world. Freedom of information, it's very good for the people, very bad for those in power. Okay, and that's why those in power try to control the media and the internet and so forth. And government and corporate, we have two kinds of controls, government and corporate controls. So, you know, an illustration is that, you know, think of former President Trump, right? The corporations Twitter shut down his account. Okay? And sometimes the governments do that, can shut down the internet or can prevent people from accessing various platforms. Again, it's all because of, they want to have control over public opinion and public square. So those are the two big players when it comes to censorship and control. And information and democracy. Of course, you can't have democracy if you don't have an informed population, right? Now, and then what is happening is that the internet and the social media are revolutionizing politics as well. Again, we can go back to what happened just recently in Washington, D.C., right? And then at the same time, the amount of information, the volume of information is increasing by second, okay? And access to knowledge is democratized, right? If you have a computer and you can access all sorts of information online, right? For free. That was not possible before the internet and social media. So there are pluses and minuses, right? And finally, I want to just pose some questions, but before doing that, for those of you who are interested, this is my newest book, number 20, was just released by Roman and Littlefield. That's one of the biggest publishers in the US. And here's the link. You can go to the link. It's available on the publisher's website, Amazon, Google, and other websites as well. And then another recent book that I published just last year is this one, Global Communication, which is a textbook and is used by, at universities in different countries. Now, some questions for you regarding the traditional and new media. Collectively, can they cause revolutions?
Yes, I mean, any of the panelists can answer it. I mean, sir.
Yes, I think so. Like, if we compare the traditional and the new media has a greater reach. Like, if we talk about social media only, we have everything on a fingertip. So I guess, yeah, it's a much better platform for a revolution, for creating a revolution because of the reach that it has, the social media, instead of in comparison to the traditional media. If we talk about that,
Yes.
yeah,
Can
I
they
believe
cause?
that it can.
Yeah. Can they cause chaos?
Chaos, yeah, absolutely. It's creating a chaos right now. Like, if we talk about misinformation and disinformation, both the cases are like, if we see in the presidential elections in USA and even back here in India, we see multiple cases of misinformation, disinformation, fake information, propaganda, everything. So yeah, it's a daily affair, the chaos, and that is increased with the rise of the new media, the social media. If I talk particularly.
What we are facing now is what is called information explosion. There's too much information. It's very difficult to sift through, right? And you don't have time to sit down and see what's right, who's wrong, right? You're bombarded. You're bombarded with all sorts of
Yeah,
information.
there's a huge dilemma: who's right, who's wrong,
Yeah.
what's going on exactly. Yeah, it's very
Yes.
difficult to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Actually,
So
news and views both are merged. I mean, if we talk
Yeah.
about the Indian, information channels or the news channels, so it's very hard to differentiate between the news and views. So
right.
it's Tough
they're
time makes one
blended.
evil.
You see, yeah, they're blended together,
Yeah.
and that's very brief when it comes to I guess television. You get 30 seconds,
Hmm.
and they just give you a glimpse of, and that of course depending on what the issue is. So can they inform?
Yeah, definitely. The media is one of the biggest platform to inform people. Just like you show the like the cartoon that is the favorite one of yours. If a tree falls in the forest and
Yeah.
if the media doesn't cover it, how will people know? So yeah, definitely, it's the
I
biggest
think that
platform for informing people.
I think that's an excellent analogy.
Yeah,
I use that often.
it explains a very simple thing in a very even a child can understand it, like because it's a cartoon. It's explained in a very simple way. So yeah, even I
Yes,
loved it.
yes. So can they misinform, mislead?
Yeah, definitely. That's going on in the mainstream
Yes.
media. Yeah, on the social media as well.
Can they manipulate public opinion?
Definitely, for sure. Public opinion, like so, media and public opinion, they go like hand in hand. What we see, what we hear, what the media tells us, that directly impacts the public, the people's opinion. So yeah, definitely, for sure.
So if we talk about the theories also, sir, so I think like agenda setting theory, priming theory, and framing theory, basically, focus
Yes,
on all these things, how there's a connection between the media and the public opinion. So
right. And how the issues are framed, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. And presented. Again, going back
Yeah,
to
yeah. That presentation creates a huge impact. How the media creates and produces in front of the audience.
yes. And generally speaking, people are gullible everywhere.
Mhm.
There's this herd instinct, and they follow. Again, the recent event is in Washington, D.C., that we don't have to go far. It could happen anywhere.
Mhm.
Somebody takes the lead and the rest follow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that, we have unfortunately many instances of that around the world. And again, going back to Chomsky, manufacturing consent. That's, the media are used to manipulate public opinion and manufacture consent. Can they influence the media? Of course, right? In many ways. All aspects of our lives, right? What we eat, what we read, what we wear, right? What we do, what we talk about. Is there anything that is not related to media that we do every day? I mean, practically everything that we do every day is somehow, or talk about every day, is somehow impacted by what we have seen, what we have read, what we have heard.
May I interrupt you, sir? Actually, there are few questions from participants as well. And there is one question from Dr. Ajitab Singh, and he is asking, if you talk about the US, is there a Trump media? Your comment on it.
The Twitter was his medium and was taken away.
Mm-hmm.
So he was actually disarmed, you see? And also, another commentary is that he used the social platforms, especially the Twitter, to say and whatever he wanted to do without filtration, directly communicating with his followers. But that's one of the, I think, important aspects of these social media platforms. And then because what he was posting, what he was claiming were not true. The Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, others, they were forced to delete his account because, again, we saw the chaos. that what a leader says and does makes a big difference. And people follow often without questioning.
Yeah.
Okay? So, and again, that was again in what the reason that the corporations and social media did that, because they did not want to get into a more problematic, chaotic situation. It was leading to that. And of course, if that had continued, then the President Biden's agenda would have been impacted negatively if you had him tweeting every day and commenting about the situation. And then another issue that I think we should think about is, and that's a positive aspect of this social media, and negative and positive. But think of the COVID, right? We have been in our homes, have been confined to the home for almost a year.
Yes, sir.
And what would we have done without the social media?
I mean, this was a golden time, in fact, for, interacting with your family members, basically. So that was the best time for interpersonal communication as well. So yes, we had a lot of time.
But we are separated. But the social media allowed us to communicate with one another regardless of the distance. You could see one another, you could chat. But that's a plus, or what we are doing right now.
Right.
So this is one of the benefits of the internet.
Yes, sir.
So can the media coordinate, organize? Especially social media, right? Through the social media, you can coordinate, you can organize events, right? Can they connect people? Of course. Here we are, right? We are in India and I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, and having a conversation. This is wonderful, right? Again, it depends on how we use and for what purpose we use the media. And that's the key. And then combined with the various issues that I talked about, being socially responsible and avoiding manipulation, avoiding lies and all that. Can the media promote peace and harmony? Yeah, if they can promote chaos and anarchy, yes, they can promote peace and harmony.
Too.
You see, in any given country. It's very powerful, very powerful. And that's what, in a nutshell, what I had to say. Again, these are multi-dimensional issues and require a lot of discussion, a lot of time, but nonetheless, you get, sort of the gist of some of the important issues. Now, I'm open to your questions if you have any.
Yes, there is a question from Munawwar Alam Ji, and he is asking that, sir, can you please enlighten us on the impact of artificial intelligence journalism?
Well, that is huge. That's the future, artificial intelligence. That you have these autonomous vehicles, right? Using AI, right? Tesla, right? Self-driving automobile. So that our AI is going to change again. That's a new revolution. That is going to change all aspects of our lives. And not only that, some worry, well, as it is, we don't use this mental capacity. On the average, people use less than 10% of the mental capacity, less than 10%. Okay. Now, with AI and this, and you've seen these robots that they can communicate, right? You can communicate with robots, right? Robots that can do various tasks, right? The question is, what will happen to us as human beings and our minds? Because in a way, there is a competition between the technology, robotic technology, AI technology, and us. Where are we headed? Again, think of driving a Tesla. You just sit there, take a nap, and the car is going. That's amazing, right? Or airplanes, or trains, or other. And of course, we can talk about the impact of all these on education. Will we have the same system, the same structures, or will it be different? My own thinking is that tomorrow will not be the same as today. Everything is changing and changing rapidly. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we have to adjust to these changes. Again, there are, pluses and minuses. Okay. And especially, an example when it comes to technology and the COVID vaccine, the speed that they came up and developed the vaccine, that's remarkable because of the technology, available technology, research, and so forth. Yeah, AI certainly is going to be to have a tremendous impact. I think that's the third revolution in communication and human history.
I have one question. So, no doubt, if we talk about the social media, so it's a platform which has given a chance to citizen journalists. And even like if I talk about India, here a huge agitation is going on. The farmers movement is going on here in India, and farmers are like sitting, for more than 2 months. So the mainstream media is covering it the way they want. And if you talk about parallelly, like there are several papers. Even the farmers have started their own paper called Trolley Times. Some of the freelance journalists are there, and they have started doing the citizen journalism as well. But there are people on social media who only either like, dislike. So you also mentioned about the collectivism or slacktivism, we say. So what is that? Is it a kind of true activism?
Well, true activism is when you have a goal. You're trying to change whatever it is. Your goal is to reach that what you have set to do, right? And what are the means of reaching that goal? What are the vehicles? What are the strategies that you use? And then the social media give the farmers a platform to express their views, right? Their displeasure with with government, with local officials and what have you. So that is unique, and I consider that to be a plus. So the social media have given voice to the voiceless.
Yeah.
You know, because the traditional media, you could not simply do that. You could not go on TV, say, okay, you know, I want to have these issues and problems and I want to talk about them. Not possible. But now it is possible to do that. Anyone can have access. Anyone can voice his or her views, whether as individuals or as groups. Okay? And of course, nothing happens in a haphazard manner. Things have to be, when we talk about activism and social change, they have to be organized, planned, okay, and there must be goals. You know? No, I view that as a positive.
It's almost 8 o'clock, so sir was with us almost like for more than 1.5 hours almost.
Yes.
So I'll request, I'll request Isha to kindly conclude the session because it's high time now. Even sir will be tired. So
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your precious time. Now I would like to request Bhavna ma'am to propose the vote of thanks.
thank you so much, Isha, for providing me this opportunity. Please, sir, please accept my heartfelt gratitude from our side. It was a wonderful, session. It was really eye-opening for all of us. Even I was just getting feedback. People were just saying it was a wonderful session. And it was a kind of journey you elaborated right from starting, right from traditional media to the social media. So it was actually you were correct, sir, that you were saying that it is a kind of the semester thing. It's not
Yes.
possible, but still you just precisely have gone through it, and we were exactly with you, and the videos were really very interactive, and that video really fascinated me, and it was in fact shocking too, that that was telling about that social media stats 2020, that we are almost like using more than 6 hours, so we are all active on social media. So it was such a wonderful session, and Media Monitor and on the behalf of BAGMC Electronic Media Department, my faculty colleagues, all panelists, I would like to thank you for providing this uh, opportunity to us, and providing your this golden time to us and sharing your experience with us. And I'm thankful to all attendees also for their patience listening to us. So and there is a request from all attendees that there is a link shared on chat box. So kindly fill that feedback form, and for the that digital certificate for this session. So it's a humble request. Quickly do that. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You're welcome. In what part of India you are located?
Here
Where?
in India, we are in the center of India. So we are in Madhya Pradesh. So yes, so Madhya Pradesh is basically called heart of India.
Yeah, I haven't been there, but I've been in, Bangalore,
And
Mangalore.
we are in Indore, and Indoris are basically fond of Indoris are very foodie. So if you yes, if time allows, and if you come to India, definitely we would like to have an interaction with you, and then yes, so many things are here to explore actually.
Yeah, I've been to India many times. So
Oh wow.
it's a huge
So
country.
next time if you come, we would love to have you here in
Okay.
Indore.
Okay, let's plan. Let's get rid of COVID and then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you
Yes,
all
sir.
take good care of yourself. Be safe. stay healthy, and stay positive, and make your contribution to a better future. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
so
bye-bye.
much, sir.
Bye.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.